Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to be here with all of you tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Should be yet another great late night conversation. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that you're all here tonight. Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. For those of you who may not be familiar with how we do things here, I tend to make my opening remarks, and then after that, we do the roll call, and then after that, I answer your questions for the rest of the night. So if you have something that you would like me to talk about in the second half of our program, all that you need to do is send me a super chat here on YouTube or send me a Rumble rant on the Rumble. Yeah, pretty basic. Yeah, as far as announcements, the Peace Cup is happening next weekend in Los Angeles. That should be pretty good. It's looking to be a great event. I know Reverend Josh was out there. He's going to do that. So we've got a great event sponsored by LA Galaxy. It's going to be kind of a sporting event themed around creating world peace, etc. And in other news, that's really about it for now. But CPI, Center for Political Innovation, is always doing great stuff. We're having meetings and gatherings, and we have our Zoom call that we have once a week for new members. And we're about to start an outreach campaign around the country aimed at raising awareness about the Uhuru case and about socialism. July 4th, we tend to do some targeted outreach about socialist patriotism on the holiday to put out of the movement to the masses into practice. That is the idea. So should be good. So if you would like to join the Center for Political Innovation, we can always use new members. Somebody joined just today. We got a new member, and we've got about 160 members. It's hovering around 160, but we're always looking to have more members. So if you'd like to join our organization, you can do so by just signing up on the website, $10 a month. We tend to start inviting you to the Zoom calls. We have new member workshops that we invite you to. We've got good stuff. We've got an active local in the Chicago area, active local in the Pacific Northwest, different meetup groups around the country. Our organization has really solidified itself in the last year. So I'm really glad about that. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. So as I said before, first the opening remarks, then the roll call. We find out who's on the other side of the camera. And then I answer your questions in the second half of our show. Now, folks, as you can probably tell, I'm a bit tired tonight. Had a bit of a busy day today, and I'm, got a busy day tomorrow too. So tonight, I didn't even give a news hook for this stream tonight. I didn't pick a news item to make it the theme. I just called it Friday Night Check-In, because that's what really this is. Friday night chat and check-in. I'm here to just chat and check in with all of you because you all are really, really amazing. Engaging with all of you, spending time with all of you is really, really meaningful for me. It gives meaning to my day. It makes me happy. The community that's on these streams is really delightful to me. I love engaging with all of you and answering your questions, getting to know all of you in this internet-y way. And so I just thought that we would just have a stream tonight. I am going to talk about a couple things that are on my mind. Not sure how long the opening remarks will be. I will answer any questions you've got, so feel free to send super chats for the second half. I will do that. I'm happy to do that. And then I'm going to bed because I have to get up early in the morning because I'm going to a workshop tomorrow. So, yeah. Couple things that are on my mind. I do want to marvel about some of the great creations of our community. I'm so proud of this pamphlet that we handed out, and I'm looking to do a whole new printing of them for the conventions and the events coming up this summer. Do you believe in growth? You know, the Houthi book that we published, great stuff. I mean, we do great stuff as a community. I'm really proud of that. Couple things that are just random things on my mind. Supreme Court gun ruling. I don't know if people saw this. The Supreme Court ruled on gun control. There was a gun control ruling. It was almost unanimous, actually. And I got to tell you, I don't agree with this ruling. Now, the way it's being framed by mainstream media is that if you are convicted, people that are domestic abusers that engage in domestic violence can't have guns. Now, that's already true. If you're convicted of any felony, you can't have a gun. And I don't disagree with that, right? I don't think felons should be armed. And that's totally legal, right? That, the understanding is that in the United States, owning a gun is a constitutional right. However, if you violate the law and are found guilty of violating the law through due process of law, you can have your constitutional right to own a gun taken away. That's already the case. But this Supreme Court ruling, I got to tell you, I don't agree with it. And I know that there's probably people watching now that are just losing their minds. How dare Caleb not agree? I'm just telling you, I don't agree with this new ruling because of the fact that this ruling doesn't say that if you're convicted of domestic violence, you can't have a gun. That's not what the ruling is, because that's already the case. You're convicted of any felony, you can't have a gun. This ruling says that if a restraining order is imposed on you by the courts for a domestic violence related measure, you can lose your right to own a gun. See, there's a little bit of a difference there. And that's why I don't agree with it. So what generally happens is if there's some kind of domestic violence situation, the court will put a restraining order on the perpetrator. Guy beats up his girlfriend or is accused of beating up his girlfriend, or there's some kind of domestic dispute. The court will step in and say, okay, while we're waiting for this to go to trial, the guy cannot contact the woman. Right? He puts a restraining order, which is totally reasonable, right? Because the case is ongoing and all of that. That I don't have an issue with. But the ruling is that while this restraining order is in effect, meaning that the guy has not actually been convicted of any crime, they can take away his guns. And I got to tell you, that's very dangerous. Not because I think guys who beat up their girlfriends, domestic abusers, should have guns. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that, yes, men who are domestic abusers shouldn't have guns. But before you take their gun away, you should convict them in a court of law for being a domestic abuser. Right? And that the new Supreme Court ruling says that no, if they're just accused of domestic violence, they can have their firearm confiscated. And that opens a whole Pandora's box, because at this point, anybody can be accused of a crime. And if we consider the right to own a firearm to be a constitutional right, which we do in the United States, it's called the Second Amendment. You cannot take away a constitutional right without due process of law, right? They can't take away your right to free speech. They can't take away your right to freedom of assembly. They can't search your home without due process of law. However, they're now saying that if you are accused of domestic violence and a court imposes a restraining order on you, part of that restraining order can be that they take your gun away. And that then says that a court without someone ever being convicted of a crime, can take away someone's constitutional right. And that's dangerous, right? That is dangerous. And so I will say that, look, if you don't think that owning a gun should be a constitutional right, that's many liberals do not feel that way. But the fact of the matter is that the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, as it is currently interpreted by the Supreme Court, says that owning a gun is on the same level as freedom of religion, the same level as freedom of assembly, the same level as protection from search and seizure. Owning a gun is up there with all of the same level of freedoms. It's a constitutional right. And you cannot take someone's constitutional right away unless there is due process of law. And this ruling basically says that no, if a man is accused, or I guess a woman too, if someone is accused of domestic violence, they can lose their right to bear arms without being convicted of a crime. And that is very dangerous. And I'm surprised that this Supreme Court that is very, very, very conservative, right? Amy Coney Barrett and Scalia and all of them, the only justice that opposed this was Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, he was the only Supreme Court justice who opposed this. And the rest of the Supreme Court, all 8 of them, said, yes, if someone is accused of domestic violence, but not convicted of a crime, if someone's just accused of it, a court can take their gun away. And then that raises the question of like, okay, so if someone doesn't have to be convicted of a crime to lose a constitutional right, all kinds of questions arise there, right? You can't, so I, at risk of offending my audience, because I know there's probably people in this audience who have kids who are very worried about school shootings. I know there's probably people in this audience who are concerned about gun violence, et cetera. And I'm not trying to belittle any of that. I'm just telling you that legally, from a civil liberties perspective, this ruling is dangerous. The Supreme Court is saying that a constitutional right can be taken away without due process of law. And I don't agree with that. If we consider something to be a constitutional right, you should have to be convicted of a crime, not accused of a crime, before they take it away. I mean, that is my understanding of how U.S. law works. Now, I can think of some exceptions, right? Generally, first of all, freedom of speech, we all know, is, it's not total. You can't threaten people. They can restrict where, time, and place. And so, there are restrictions on all freedoms, right? So there's that. We also know that, like, for example, you have the freedom to travel. However, if you are facing a criminal proceeding, they will confiscate your passport, so you can't just leave the country. So there are exceptions to that, where people can lose their freedom without, being convicted of a crime. So they would argue that this is one of those situations, but I would argue that no, right? Your right to bear arms does not go away simply because of the fact that you have been accused of something, but not found guilty. If you're found guilty of a crime, of a felony, they can take your gun away. But if you're just accused, they cannot take your gun away. And that's, the case that this came around. I can understand why the Supreme Court, why people wouldn't want the guy in the case to have a gun. I guess the guy was accused of domestic violence against his girlfriend. And then he apparently went to her house and, was threatening to shoot various neighbors and people with a gun. And so the judge in the case said, all right, you're restrained. You got a restraining order. You can't see the woman and you have to give up your gun. And he said, no, I don't have to give up my gun because I haven't been accused of anything. That raises some questions now, doesn't it? That raises some questions. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. Just FYI, That's been debunked. That actually, he's not dead, from what I understand, unless there's been some really recent breakthrough. There was rumors of Noam Chomsky's death, but it's not yet, unless he just died now. There's not any. That's not confirmed. So there has been. I saw that as well, but then I saw that it was not the case. So his wife said he was actually alive. So just FYI. I guess I'll respond to that later. But Noam Chomsky is not. Sounds like a great guy. But yeah, Noam Chomsky, from what I understand, he's not dead. But I'll speak about that later. But he had a stroke, but he's not dead. There were rumors of his death all over social media, but then his wife confirmed he was actually alive. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But so that was the first thing I wanted to talk about, right? It's just this Supreme Court ruling, right? I can understand why people would not want that guy to have a gun. Sounds like an awful human being. And I can understand why, well, anyway, I've talked about that case long enough. So then the next thing that's on my mind, right? I did see a neat clip from the vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. I thought I'd play this, right? The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, bus driver. He was in one of the Maoist communist groups for many years, head of the bus drivers union. But Delcy Rodriguez, she's the vice president of Venezuela. She's interesting. Her father is the founder of one of the communist parties in Venezuela that's called the Fatherland for All Party, which is one of the Marxist-Leninist communist parties of Venezuela. It's like a breakaway, right? You have the official Venezuelan Communist Party, and then you have the Fatherland for All Party of Venezuela, right? Which you would think that sounds like a nationalist far-right party, but it's actually a communist political party in Venezuela because communists are patriotic, believe it or not, right? Imagine that. But yeah, one of the communist parties, it's part of the ruling coalition in Venezuela. The main party in Venezuela is called the United Socialist Party, but in alliance with it is the Venezuelan Communist Party, and their symbol is a chicken. And then there's also the Tupac Amaro Party, which is like an indigenous people's party for indigenous native people. And there's the MAS, the Movement Toward Socialism Party, the MAS, Movement al Socialismo. And then there's also this party called Patria para Todos, or the Homeland for All. And it's Delcy Rodriguez's father was the founder of that party. And she is now this kind of superstar politician. She's the vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, and she gave an interview, or she gave some interesting comments. This is a clip of hers that is floating around. It's floating around social media, and I just thought it would be worth playing. So this is the vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. This is a recent comment that she made.
Orgullo sobre la nacionalidad, la identidad de ser estadounidense bajó de 80% a casi un 45%. Estamos hablando del pueblo de los Estados Unidos en Norteamérica. De 80% a 45%. Pero además, un 65% de la población confía poco o nada en su gobierno, y si lo elevamos a los partidos políticos, la desconfianza es de un 80%. Hay algo que está pasando en ese país. Porque las élites gobernantes justamente son élites para un sistema industrial, el complejo militar, financiero, mediático, donde el objetivo estratégico es la concentración de capital, que vino impulsado además durante los tiempos de la pandemia. En los tiempos de la pandemia, justamente el conglomerado farmacéutico, que es propietario también de fondos de inversión importantes en el mundo, fueron los que más concentraron capital y fueron los que más crecieron, pero de manera desproporcionada. Pareciera que la pandemia del COVID-19 tuvo una razón existencial para la concentración y el crecimiento del capital. Bueno, mientras esa situación se está dando en los Estados Unidos, hay otro mundo que está emergiendo. Mientras el sueño americano muere, China lidera el crecimiento mundial. Y fíjense el crecimiento acumulado entre 1991 y 2021. China creció un 4.526%. bárbaro. Vietnam, 3.709%, India, 1.076%, y si van a Estados Unidos, un 279%. Francia, un 133%, el Reino Unido, un 174%, Italia, un 69%, Japón, 38%. Y es lo que vemos ahorita hoy también cuando comparamos las cifras del G7 con la cifra de los BRICS, y donde hoy las tres principales economías del mundo, dos son de países BRICS. China en primer lugar, India en tercer lugar. Así que este nuevo mundo que se está viendo, y por eso decimos, hay una hora irreversible, que es un cambio en la geopolítica, que es un cambio en el orden económico internacional, donde el crecimiento de China, de Asia también, significará mayor demanda de energía, y donde el petróleo seguirá siendo la principal fuente de energía. Y por eso vemos allí, con humildad, la importancia que tiene Venezuela para el mundo y para nuestra región. Y allí también la razón de ser de la agresión ilegítima contra Venezuela.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. She's talking about how people's, pride in their country in the West has decreased. It's rising in China. How the world is changing. She's kind of laying out. I thought it was a good clip. Dulce Rodriguez is certainly an interesting one. And that was very informational. And there she is speaking with charts and graphs, explaining why Venezuela has been attacked, because oil is increasingly valuable, because the world is changing, and because they're an oil supplying country. They've got a huge amount of oil in Venezuela. I thought that was an interesting clip. So I just wanted to share that. And, I've been to Venezuela. I have a video. So when I went to Venezuela, I did make a video. I went to, when I was in Venezuela, I went to a Bolivarian commune. And I think I've shown this on my streams before, but maybe I'll show it again, inside a Bolivarian commune. When I visited, the stronghold of the revolution in Venezuela. Because in Venezuela they have, it's a very diverse country, but in central Caracas, there's a neighborhood, and I think it's called like the February 22nd neighborhood or something like that. It's named after an uprising that happened, and it is a stronghold of the Venezuelan Communist Party and of the Bolivarian movement. And I visited it, and it's got a number of what they call colectivos, which are these like communes, basically, these areas that are run by different communist groups. And I went to a couple different ones. One of them was a Christian socialist commune. Another one was a more secular commune associated with the Venezuelan Communist Party. And, it was quite interesting to see, because, these are people that have lived in these neighborhoods in the urban center of Venezuela, and they've been the stronghold of the revolution. And their neighborhoods are organized by the Communist Party and by the Bolivarian movement. They're big supporters of Bolivarian socialism because it has provided them with real improvements in their lives, like literacy, like healthcare. I saw the Cuban healthcare clinics where these people are able to get healthcare because of the Bolivarian revolution. I walked through a neighborhood where they said that before the revolution, every single one of these houses had not yet been built. All of these houses were built with an interest-free loan provided by the Venezuelan government. They all get free heating and cooking gas, and these neighborhoods have just been built by the socialist revolution, and illiteracy was wiped out, and there's Cuban doctors there who can provide them with healthcare. And if you look at the conditions in some of these really impoverished neighborhoods, that are not impoverished anymore, thanks to socialism in Venezuela, the standard of life has really gone up. And that's the fact that the Venezuelan revolution, they have this solid core of people who are very, very loyal to them. Most anti-imperialist countries that I visit nowadays, I'll just tell you, it's a third, a third, a third. And Venezuela is like this, and Iran is like this, right? you got a third of the people that are against the government, right? They think that, they buy into the Western propaganda against the government. They're frustrated with aspects of their lives, which they blame on the government. That's like a third of the people. And then you got a third of the people that support the government, but they're kind of indifferent, right? They think, okay, the government's doing okay. It is our government. We don't want to have our country overthrown. The Americans don't have the right to tell us who our leader is, and they've done some good things. They're not fanatical supporters of the government. They're not going to go out and get killed for the government, maybe, but they think that the ruling revolutionary government has done some good things. They're sympathetic. It's like, hey, they're in power. This is our country, whatever. But then you have this other third that are like, they will die for the revolution. They are down for the whole thing. They are ready to be martyrs for the revolution. They are living with the ideology of the revolution. They are organized into armed groups to defend the revolution. Iran is like this, right? And Venezuela is like this as well. And that third, that fanatical third of people that are just very, very loyal, that's what keeps the government in power. Because the third that's against them, it's not really going to do much, right? And it doesn't have guns. It's not armed. It's not well organized. And then the third that's for them, right, is like neutral, kind of. It's neutral but sympathetic. It's like somewhat sympathetic, and that's like a layer of society that is neutralized. I mean, they're not going to cause a problem. And then that solid third, that's why the revolutionary government stays in power. And it's a very interesting model because I think the Soviet Union and the communist governments of the 20th century, they made the mistake of trying to basically force everyone in the country to be in that fanatical third, right? People had to, turn in, control everyone in their workplace, make sure people in their workplace followed the party line. We know about the Cultural Revolution in China. And that, like, the mistake of communist governments in the 20th century was this kind of, people talk about ideological totalism. Like, they were like demanding that everyone in the country be a fanatical communist. And that was a mistake because a lot of people just don't care. Or, people are going to think for themselves. People are going to come up with their ideas. And that this new model, right? And it's like this in China too, right? There's a layer of the population that are very loyal to the communists. There's a layer of the population that are just kind of like, well, the communists have improved our lives. Living standards have gone up. So I guess they're doing okay. And then there's a layer of people, sure, who buy into the Western propaganda. But it's like this new model of a third is very, very effective because no one's faking it, right? And that's the thing. At the time of the fall of the Soviet Union, it was very clear there were a lot of people in the Soviet Communist Party leadership who didn't believe in communism anymore. You had your Gorbachevs and your Yeltsins, and they didn't believe in it anymore. But what else were they going to do? The only way they could advance was moving into the party bureaucracy. That was the only way you could have more money, is to be, had bureaucratic privilege. And so, this new model of kind of a third, it goes along with having a market sector. This is a much more effective way of running an anti-imperialist or socialist state. And I've noticed that. And that the collectivos and the communes. And what I noticed about Venezuela, and I think this is very interesting, is that among the third of people that are very fanatical supporters of Bolivarian socialism and the government, there's a diversity, right? You have Maoists, you have Trotskyists, you have Christian socialists, you have social democrats, you have Peronists. It's like there's different ideological camps and different leaders, different kind of gurus within Bolivarianism, and they fight with each other and they have rivalries, but they're all on the same team as supporters of Maduro and the Bolivarian project. And that's also very different. In China during the Mao years, there was Mao, right? In the Soviet Union, the Stalin years, there was Stalin. But there's if you look at in Iran is like this too. You have many different religious leaders, many different clerics in Iran that are part of the Islamic revolution, part of the Islamic hardliner camp, but they have very different ideas, very different interpretations of the Quran, etc. They have all their own following and they have their own faction within the pro-government section. And in Venezuela, it's like that too. Within the communist and socialist, pro-socialist, pro-communist wing, the fanatical core of Venezuela, you have a lot of different perspectives, and you have people that are like, old school communists. You have indigenous folks, you have religious Christian folks. I mean, that there is a wide variety of views within the Bolivarian camp, right? And that there's a number of different teachers and radical leaders and writers and stuff like that. And that is also what holds them together, because they're not demanding that everyone become a follower of the leader. Now, Hugo Chavez certainly had a very big following with his show, but within the Chavista movement, there's a wide variety of thought, and they don't get along with each other, and they disagree with each other on a variety of different things. And I find that to be very interesting as well. So this is, 21st century socialism. That's what they call their system in Venezuela. They call it socialism of the 21st century. It is very interesting. So I'll just show you. I do apologize. This video, I had very little experience making my own videos, but I was in Venezuela in 2015, and I made this like short film, and it's not shot very well. I'll just be honest. But I've showed it on here before, but I figured in light of showing Dulce Rodriguez, maybe I'll show inside a Bolivarian commune from when I was in Venezuela in 2015.
We're here in Commune Pinal. This means Commune Beehive. It's one of the strongholds of the Bolivarian Revolution. It's one of the communal cities that's been set up. It's here in the center of Caracas. Here all the people live collectively, and they are strong supporters of the revolution, and they're trying to build collective businesses and ownership over the economy. It's quite an inspiring place to be at Beehive Commune.
En 1989 hubo el debacle, salió Fukuyama y dijo: el fin de la historia, ha triunfado el capitalismo sobre Guerra Fría, toda esa cosa. Y exactamente en 1989, el 27 de febrero, Venezuela da en el mundo el primer símbolo de rechazo contra políticas neoliberales que pasó acá, que se llamó el Caracazo.
So in 1989, Fukuyama talked about the end of history and how capitalism had triumphed in the world. Yeah. But also in 1989, the 4th of February of 1989, el 4 de febrero? 27 de febrero. I'm sorry, 27th of February of 1989, Venezuela gave an example to the world that was not true with the Caracazo.
Yeah, the Caracazo was kind of the founding moment of the Venezuelan Revolution. That they increased the prices of public transportation in Venezuela. So the people of Venezuela went out and rioted in big numbers, demanding that they not raise the prices of public transportation. And that uprising was kind of the symbol, the moment that they say the socialist revolution in Venezuela began. After that, Hugo Chavez attempted a military coup and failed. He went to prison. He was then released from prison. And then after he got out of prison, he ran for office, and he eventually won the elections.
So that was the first battle against neoliberalism.
Y el 4 de febrero de 1992 insurge Chávez, hijo de esa conmoción de lo que fue el 27 de febrero.
So in February 4th, 1992, Chavez led a rebellion that basically came out of that insurrection in 1989.
Con mucho tacto y muy inteligente, Chávez no se iba a poner ortodoxo, dogmático, anacrónico, de encasillar el modelo soviético, agarrarlo y copiarlo y pegarlo y ponerlo en Venezuela, porque nos iban a decir: ustedes están crazy.
So in a very tactical and intelligent manner, without any dogmatism or any orthodox ideology, Chavez knew that he could not take the Soviet model and copy that here because he knew that people were going to think he was crazy.
Entonces Chávez utilizó su carisma, su esencia, su espíritu, lo venezolano, nuestras creencias, nuestra cultura, y empezó a darle ese símbolo, ese espíritu indoamericano, estilo José Carlos Mariátegui, que es el socialismo indoamericano. Ni calco ni copia, sino creación heroica de los pueblos, decía Carlos Mariátegui. Entonces Chávez empezó a vivenciar, no hacer estilo eclecticismo, ¿no? Pero sí decir, bueno, vamos a hablarle a nuestro pueblo venezolano del socialismo. Si nos metemos con el tema de la religión, va a ser un entrompe, o sea, como que un problema muy a fondo. Vamos a realmente a tratar de solventar las reivindicaciones, las cosas esenciales de la vida, y desde allí hablar del socialismo.
So Chavez, using his charisma, his basically his very Venezuelan way of being, and he started talking to the people about socialism, but also using, understanding that there's a religiosity here in the country, so he used that as an entryway to talk to the people about socialism.
¿Viste la Mariátegui?
No.
Ah, pendiente, repite.
Ah, que fue muy largo. So dime de nuevo.
Bueno, que Chávez adaptó ese socialismo indoamericano al estilo José Carlos Mariátegui.
So basically, Chavez adopted the ideology of the Indo or our American socialist ideology of Carlos Mariátegui.
Y dice, no es calco ni copia, sino creación heroica de los pueblos.
Okay, so this is not a copy or plagiarism. This is a creation that comes from the people themselves.
Entonces, él, desde lo que somos, empezó a construir el socialismo del siglo XXI.
So from where we stand, he started building the socialism of the 21st century.
Entonces no se iba a meter con Dios. Es más, él decía que Cristo fue el primer socialista del mundo.
So, he wasn't going to mess with God. He used to say that Christ was the first socialist in the world.
Y Ana Caona, que es mi nombre, la creyente, la que me dijo que era creyente, cree en ese Cristo.
And Ana Caona, which is her name, believes in that Christ.
En el que reparte el pan.
The God that, that gives the bread.
El que ama al prójimo como a sí mismo.
The one that loves thy neighbor as
como
yourself.
A sí mismo. El que expulsó a los mercaderes del templo.
The one that expelled the people from the market.
El que fue justo.
The just.
El que visitó al enfermo, no al sano.
The one that visited the sick people.
Y el que murió por su idea.
And the one that died for his ideals.
En ese Dios creo. En
So,
el Dios del humilde.
So that's the Christ, that's the God that she believes in.
Y en ese fue el Dios que creó Chávez.
And that's the God that Chavez believes in.
Bueno, somos hijos de Chávez realmente. De hecho, yo tengo 25 años y cuando le dieron el golpe de Estado al comandante Chávez, yo tenía 12 años. No tenía ningún tipo de participación política y simplemente el hecho de ver gente bajar de los cerros a decir, yo quiero ver a Chávez, yo voté por Chávez, ¿dónde está Chávez? Eso a mí me causó gran impresión. Yo tenía 12 años, era una niña, y a partir de allí el espíritu, o sea, somos hijos de la revolución, y es por eso que esta juventud la va a defender como sea.
So they are the children of Chavez. She's 25 now, but back then in 2002, when the coup against Chavez happened, she was only 12. And she was very impressed by seeing the people coming down from the shanty towns to the city, demanding that they voted for Chavez and they wanted Chavez. So for that, it left a mark on her. And since then, she understood that they're the children of the revolution and that they will defend the revolution by any means.
Chávez fue el mejor profesor. Mira, yo no me cansaba de escucharlo, de verlo. Eran 8 horas de transmisión en cadena nacional y tú estabas ahí pegado viéndolo escuchando.
So Chavez was the best teacher, and she wouldn't get tired of listening to him. he used to have the TV show for 8 hours and she wouldn't get tired.
Max Weber, un gran filósofo, sociólogo, hablaba de los carismas. Y como escucha, yo creo que tenía los 5 carismas, todos completos, los tenía en esencia.
So Max Weber, a very famous sociologist, used to talk about the 5 different charismas, and she believes that Chavez had all of the aspects.
Mira, este te hablaba, te echaba un cuento, después te cantaba una canción, después volvía, y después saludaba a la señora, y eso sí, no era populismo. No era populismo, no era hipocresía, tú lo sentías, te llegaba una conexión con su pueblo.
Natural de él.
Sorprendente.
So Chavez would tell you a joke, tell you a story, then he would sing a song, then he would go away and come back and say hi to the old lady and the crowd, and it wasn't populism. It was something that was real, sincere, and you could feel that.
Chávez explicó o intentó explicar un libro de Iván Mesal, El metabolismo del capital, de una manera que, bueno, insólita.
So Chavez tried to explain this book by Iván,
de Iván Mesal, si lo conocen,
Iván Mesal, The Metabolism of the Capital, and he tried to explain that.
Un libro así. Y él agarraba así como el arañero de allá en los llanos, pero un llanero, un veguero, agarraba el libro, mira lo que dice aquí y tal, y ponía a la gente a leer, le decía, léete este libro, anda para allá, escucha, porque era su esencia. Y eso es lo que transmitía la gente.
So it was a very thick book, so he would go through the pages and be like, look what it says here, go read this book, and he would encourage the people to read, but that was his essence.
Y nosotros, bueno, somos el reflejo de su confesión, somos sus siervos.
And we are the reflection of Chavez. We are what he, ¿cómo se llama? What he planted.
De hecho, mira, rescató a Bolívar.
So he rescued the legacy
rescató
of Bolívar.
a Santa, rescató toda nuestra lucha latinoamericana.
He rescued all
nuestros
our
símbolos
struggles
patrios.
in America, our patriotic
Un nacionalismo, no hablo chauvinista, pero sí un nacionalismo bolivariano de la patria grande.
So it was not a chauvinistic nationalism, it was a Bolivarian nationalism, it was nationalism of the great homeland.
Estos días me pasaron un video de un compañero que es un doctor en ciencias sociales de Barcelona, y él estaba comentando y hablando de Chávez, y decía que una amiga afro-venezolana de él decía, desde que llegó Chávez y desde que Chávez me enseñó, ya no me daba pena mi nariz, era afro-venezolana y no le daba pena su nariz.
So recently, social sciences professor in Spain was talking about Chavez, and he was telling the story about this Afro-Venezuelan friend of his who said to him after Chavez came to power, I'm no longer ashamed or embarrassed of my nose or her features, because she's Afro-Venezuelan, so there was a lot of discrimination.
Yo soy eso.
So that's who she
No puedo
is,
decir más nada.
and that's all I can say.
Gracias, yo soy creyente, yo creo en Dios. Gracias a Dios por permitirme vivir en los tiempos de Chávez.
So she's a believer, she's a religious person, and she thanks God because she was alive during the times of
Y
Chavez.
gracias a Dios por permitirme morir por Chávez.
And she thanks God because God will allow her to die for Chavez.
La pregunta.
This is just like the park in the center of Caracas, in the communist neighborhood, and they've got a mural of Che Guevara there. And these are just families, like the kids having a birthday party there in the park. And I filmed this, and it was just kind of like, this is communism. I mean, this is, you're in liberated territory here, right? In the park, they've got a big picture of Che Guevara, and the families are all eating there, and they're singing "Old MacDonald Had a Farm," and you know, and it's, you know, their families out there celebrating, but they're in the center of a revolutionary communist government, you know.
This here behind me is the radio and TV station. It's run out of the Beehive Commune here. It's where they kind of broadcast revolutionary messages all over the country. It's collectively run by the people who live here in the commune.
You look at those murals that just went by. Let me remind you who those are. So, right here, and you know, well, I'll just show you who those murals that are painted on the walls in the neighborhood are. So there we go. Yeah, so that's Simon Bolivar, right? The liberator from Spanish colonialism, Simon Bolivar, right? And that's Hugo Chavez, the founder of socialism in Venezuela. And then that there is a replica of a mural that from China to celebrate the Paris Commune of 1871. But it's a famous Chinese communist propaganda poster they replicated, right? And you know, Karl Marx famously said the Paris Commune, they were storming heaven. And so you see the communards there marching, and then you see Karl Marx's face behind them. It's a very famous Chinese mural that was made to support the Shanghai Commune in China during the Cultural Revolution. So there you go.
So we're outside of Colectivo Radio 23. This is one of the community radio stations that's been set up as part of the Bolivarian process of creating media that isn't controlled by the big corporations and the rich, but is actually accountable to the community. This is Colectivo Radio 23.
No, yo no sé cuál es la intencionalidad.
So this is interesting. So in this radio station in the middle of Venezuela, they've got two pictures on display. Who do they have? They have Bashar Assad, the president of Syria, and they have Ahmadinejad, who was at this time the president of Iran. And that was because apparently this radio station in Venezuela that plays like salsa music and is like available to local people in the community to broadcast is apparently sponsored by the Islamic Republic of Iran, which I thought was so. I mean, Venezuela and Iran, even back then, were very, very close. This is before, you know, Venezuela and Iran got as close as they are now. Now there's like whole Iranian supermarkets that Venezuela imports a huge amount of Iranian food, etc. But even back then, there's this radio station that plays salsa music, and it's sponsored by Iran. They got a big picture of Bashar Assad of Syria and Ahmadinejad in the radio station. They're playing the salsa music.
Mira, Glenn, te presento a mis amigos.
That's the mural there. It says the name of the place. It was Comuna Pinal, right, which means beehive. Yeah, so Comuna Pinal 2021. Right. Comunal El Pinal established 2021. That's Caracas from like the mountain. You can look down on the city. right? And this is the other commune, Comuna Insurgente, right? So that's, yeah, there's another one. Yes, that was my trip inside a Bolivarian commune. Since we're talking Venezuela, I'll put on a story I did a few years back, just showing how ridiculous it is that they claim that Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, is a dictator for reasons that I'll show. This is an RT story I did years ago.
A whole array of politicians who don't approve of Nicolas Maduro. But one of the labels that he's given is worth exploring. According to them, Nicolas Maduro is a dictator.
Nicolas Maduro is a dictator.
Tyranny of the now defunct Maduro regime.
Dictadura de Venezuela.
Brutal dictator Nicolas Maduro
and his mayhem.
So what exactly is a dictator? Now, the term generally refers to authoritarian leaders who crush their opposition and have absolute power. But what's been happening in Venezuela lately? At this point, we've got a minor opposition figure, Juan Guaido, declaring himself to be the interim president. And at this point, he's got the United States and Britain backing him. He was then banned from traveling by the Supreme Court. So, what did he do? He then went on a speaking tour of Latin American countries, rallying support from those who want to violently overthrow the Venezuelan government. After that, what did he do? He stayed in exile, fearing for his life, knowing that if he returned, the harsh regime would kill him, right? Well, no, he actually felt safe enough to get on a commercial flight and go back to Venezuela. He still has not been arrested, and the United States itself forbids people from doing this kind of thing.
Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion against the authority of the US shall be fined or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both.
Imagine that some kind of fringe activist pulled a Guaido in America and declared himself to be the president with, say, Venezuela or Iran backing him. Well, Guaido hasn't been arrested, and he's walking around giving speeches freely in Venezuela.
I was able to enter Venezuela thanks to you and your mobilization in all of Venezuela. We feel that today we've made a decisive step towards the conquest of our freedom.
Leopoldo Lopez, Guaido's longtime ally, was actually convicted of inciting violence against the Venezuelan government. His trial received huge international attention, and after a brief stint in prison, he was in house arrest. And from his home, he was once again rallying people to overthrow Maduro. This is how Lopez's wife described his treatment by the supposed dictatorship.
Leopoldo's in contact with everyone, every day, constantly. He's been sewing together an opposition that's totally united and strong.
Now, some people might say that it's only because of the immense pressure on Venezuela that Maduro hasn't swept in and crushed the life of Juan Guaido. However, that doesn't exactly add up, because at this point, only 25% of the countries in the world recognize Guaido as the president. The rest of the world says that Maduro is the legitimate leader. Now, in any other country in the world, arresting this kind of provocateur would pretty much be standard practice. However, Juan Guaido is free. He's walking around Venezuela giving speeches, inciting people to engage in violence for his made-for-social-media revolution.
Hope has been born and it will not die. Things are going well.
In Venezuela, opposition rallies and protests take place all the time. There are many things that you can say about Nicolas Maduro, but brutal dictator is a profile he just doesn't fit. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Yeah, that was a story I did. And it just shows you how ridiculous the claim that Maduro is a dictator. I mean, it's ridiculous. The other thing, and this is another video I did, when the anti-Maduro, the anti-Venezuelan rally happened at the UN, I had a good time messing with those folks. And let me show you the video of that. That was satisfying, because they were out in front of the UN rallying, and I had a good time talking with the anti-Maduro Venezuelans.
Hey, folks. So yesterday, I had an opportunity to interview some of the anti-Maduro activists who were outside the United Nations General Assembly. These are Venezuelans who want to violently overthrow the Venezuelan government and topple the leader and replace the leader with the US-backed figure Juan Guaido. So keep in mind, these aren't just random Venezuelans. These are folks that came all the way to New York City to protest outside the United Nations. And you'd be surprised what these folks have to say. The level of dishonesty is quite massive. This is what I heard from anti-Maduro regime change activists outside the United Nations.
We live in a really hard situation there in Venezuela. We want justice in our country.
Okay. And who's to blame for the situation?
Of course, it's Maduro.
Repression, communism.
Can you tell me about the repression?
Yeah, the repression. I used to be a leadership in my university. They follow me up so many times that I go shoot by bullet tear gas.
What is this for, the State Department?
No, I'm an independent blogger. I have a YouTube channel.
And how are you going to use it?
I'm asking you. I'm going to post it on YouTube.
On YouTube?
Yeah. So why are you here today?
In English or Spanish?
English. Now, did you hear what he just said? He said, are you from the State Department, right? He sees some white guy in a suit with a camera and thinks I'm from the State Department. These are not just grassroots activists. These are not just random people, right? This movement to bring down Maduro is not a revolution from below. These people are deeply, deeply embedded with the U.S. government, with the U.S. intelligence agencies. This is a regime change operation. He sees me and says, oh, are you at the State Department? But it gets much better. Wasn't Chavez elected?
He was elected originally, but then he sold Venezuela and he changed the constitution several times. The last elections were all rigged.
How were they rigged?
Huh?
How were they rigged?
They were rigged with, the computer system, the computer, everything.
They don't respect private property. They don't respect the freedom of the people, and they don't respect the life.
Okay. Now I've been to Venezuela.
Yeah.
When I was in Venezuela, I saw ads on television for the mood. I saw opposition demonstrations taking place. Why is it a dictatorship?
Because it's not an easy thing to talk about it.
But no, I saw elections taking place.
I can still show you conversations with journalist people.
Yeah.
I can show you so many contexts and so much information that is already explained on internet.
Juan Guaido, right, says he's the president.
Yes, absolutely.
And
yes.
he's being supported by the United States.
Yes.
If I was in the United States here and I said that I was the president and I had Venezuela and North Korea backing me, I would be in prison right now. So how is it a dictatorship?
No. This is a different situation. Venezuela is a dictatorship.
So why is Juan Guaido walking around saying he's the president, funded by the United States, and he's not killed? If I did that in America, which is a democratic country, if I said I was the president and I had Venezuela backing me, I would go to prison. Any other country, he'd be in jail.
Our government is not that stupid. They know if they touch Guaido, something's gonna happen.
Why have members of the opposition, like yourself, been caught burning food and destroying food warehouses, trying to starve your own people so that you can overthrow the government?
We're not burning food.
What? So it's fake news, it's lies, you haven't burned any food, they haven't caught you burning warehouses?
It's common sense, bro.
The Venezuelan opposition has been caught with warehouses full of food they keep from the people because they want a crisis so they can overthrow Maduro.
No, that's not
They
true.
lit the food truck on the border on fire. Did you see the video?
But that wasn't the opposition. It was the government.
The New York Times even says it was the opposition.
No, well, New York Times can be wrong.
So they're part of a conspiracy to help Maduro?
That's a conspiracy to help Maduro. Guaido has the support more than 80% of the people.
80% of the people support Guaido.
Of the people support Guaido.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Right, you're 80% support Guaido.
80% of population
What
support
poll
Guaido.
showed that?
What's that?
What poll showed that?
What?
How did you determine 80% of the people support Juan Guaido?
Why determine 80% of the people? Because if the people has no able to fly.
How did you determine? You just said 80% of the people
80% of the
support
people.
Guaido.
80% of the people.
How did you do a poll?
You told.
What is that based
on? It's because I believe so.
You believe it?
I believe it.
Oh, you believe it? Okay.
I believe it.
Now, if I'm a reporter. If I got on TV and made up numbers because I
look
believed
at
it, I
numbers.
would
No,
lose
you
my
don't have
job.
to make. You're a reporter. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
You're a
All right.
reporter. Your obligation is different than mine.
Right. I have to tell the truth. You don't. Before Chavez, before Maduro, it was good.
The relationship it functioned at least better. At least there was a functioning democracy oligarchy.
They're killing me.
How?
If they not
You look fine.
What? Because I'm in America. Right.
So they were trying to kill
Thank
you?
you. I came here and I have AIDS. You know why I have AIDS? Because my government never gave me medication to survive.
So
you know
the Venezuelan government gave you AIDS.
No, the Venezuelan government don't give me the medication to survive.
The U.S. government blocks that medicine from getting there.
That was
in
before.
fact, Cuba is leading the world in AIDS treatment. Cuba leads the world
I came
in AIDS
here
treatment.
10 years ago, and the sensation started 5 years ago, and I came here 10 years
So
ago.
why does
and they
Cuba
already-
have some of the most advanced treatment for AIDS of any country in the world?
That's not true.
Oh, it's not true.
That's
Okay.
not true.
All right.
Where are you reporting for?
Who am I reporting for? It's for my YouTube channel.
And what is your YouTube channel
It's
about?
my YouTube channel. I
About
cover
what?
international news, all kinds of things. I've been to Venezuela. I've seen what's actually going on there, right? And I don't want another war. And you guys are out here campaigning for my government to invade Venezuela, for people my age to go and die in a new war, and I don't want that.
It will not be just the United States, it will be a coalition.
Oh, it'll be a coalition that'll invade Venezuela.
Yeah.
So you want your own country to be invaded?
At this moment,
So
yes.
how's Libya doing since their invasion?
What happened is you're looking at it from the wrong
How's
point of
Iraq
view.
doing
Wait,
since
you're
the
asking me a
invasion?
question. You want me to answer?
Sure.
Yeah, then let me talk.
All right.
Okay. What happening is right now we are invaded already. We have Cuba is invading Venezuela.
The elected government has welcomed Cuban doctors. That's why you have no illiteracy in
No.
Venezuela.
Are you
'cause
kidding
Cuban
me?
volunteers.
Oh my God! What you're using is a leftist narrative that is called the blind leftist narrative.
Okay. But you want the U.S. military to roll into your country.
If anybody lifts the flag and says revolution, you will blindly go and give him support.
No,
it's ridiculous.
But so continue. You said you want the U.S. military to invade Venezuela.
At this point, so many people are desperate that they will say yes. If you make an election, they will say yes. Please come in.
So how has Iraq been since the U.S. invaded? How has Iraq been since? What about Libya? How's Libya been since the USA invaded?
Those are different situations.
Afghanistan, how they've been since the USA invaded?
Those are different.
How about
situations.
Honduras since the USA overthrew the elected leader? Honduras has become a mess of drug cartels. But you want to do that to your own country?
Right now, yes. Because
right now, you would prefer
invasion,
what's happened to Honduras, what's happened to Iraq, what's happened to Libya to happen to your country?
Yeah. Because I tell you what, Venezuela has a long history with the United States.
Now, what about the photo of Juan Guaido with the drug cartel? Are you concerned about this guy?
Not concerned at all.
The President of the United States has picked the president of your country. No one has voted for Juan Guaido. He's never run for election. Donald Trump declares him the president of your country. He hangs out with drug cartels.
He's not hanging out with drug cartels.
You haven't seen the photos? So it's fake.
I've seen the pictures.
Didn't Chavez wipe out illiteracy in the country?
No.
No, there's still illiteracy. The UN is lying to cover up for Chavez.
Look,
this is a big conspiracy you're describing. I mean, the UN is in it, Jimmy Carter's in it, everyone's involved trying to make Chavez look good. You know, it's weird. It's this big, vast plot you're describing. Can you tell me how big this conspiracy is?
No, it's huge, actually.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And who is running it?
I don't know.
So there you have it, folks, right? All kinds of blatantly false statements. Right? Just all kinds of things that are just ridiculously outrageous, no way conceivably true, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. But most Americans will hear these kind of people talk and not know any facts about it and say, oh yeah, well the media says Maduro's bad and they're from there, I guess I gotta believe them. These folks are blatant liars. They are saying things that are not conceivably true. They are regime change activists. And the important point that really needs to be made about these folks, more than anything, is that these anti-Maduro Venezuelans, they say they love America. They say they love the United States. They say, oh, you know, we love the United States. We want Venezuela to be just like the United States, but they don't. They don't. They don't love the United States. They love the global financial oligarchy. They love capitalism. They love big banks and corporations. And what they want is more Americans, people from Ohio, people from Texas, people from Iowa, young Americans to go and die, just like they died in Iraq, just like they died in Afghanistan. They want more Americans to die in a new war in order to reclaim Venezuela for Wall Street and Western capitalism. They don't love America. They love capitalism, they love greed, they love the billionaires and the bankers. These people are not our allies and they're not our friends. What they want is a new war. They want more instability. They want a bigger global refugee crisis. They're not friends of America. They're not friends of America's working families.
All right. Yeah. I used to do this a lot. That was one of the bonuses of being near the UN, was I had the opportunity to just go and mess with these, U.S. government sponsored activists. When they were, I messed with some Cuba people that were trying to overthrow the Cuban government. Here we go.
So folks, those of you who may not be aware, there is a huge economic embargo on Cuba. The U.S. government prevents medicine and food and other supplies from getting into Cuba. It's awful. Now, there's a group of protesters here in New York. They're marching behind a banner that says SOS Cuba. And so I'm going to ask them if they support ending the economic sanctions on Cuba, if they support ending the embargo on Cuba and preventing Cubans from getting food and medicine. Let's see if they actually want to help the Cuban people. Let's see what they're really about. So, do you want to end the blockade? Do you want to end the blockade? No, I'm just curious. You want to help the Cuban people, right?
Oh, yeah.
So do you want to end the sanctions and end the blockade?
That's not helping them.
No.
How does that help them?
Prevent them from getting medicine? Prevent them from getting medical supplies? Do you want to end the blockade?
We want freedom. Don't help them.
Now, do you want to end the blockade of Cuba? Do you want to end the economic embargo and the sanctions on Cuba?
No. Freedom for Cuba.
Right, but what about the blockade?
No, blockade is okay.
The blockade is okay?
Yeah,
Prevent
it's
people from
okay.
getting medicine.
Blockade is okay.
Why is the
Yeah.
blockade good? Tell me why the blockade is good. So you support the blockade? Tell me more about supporting the blockade.
I don't speak
So do you want to end the blockade? Do you want to end the blockade, the sanctions against Cuba?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to end the blockade, the sanctions?
No, end the sanction, no.
Why not?
We want to end the communism.
So
the Cuba
but
Cuba
the blockade keeps people from getting
because
medicine.
they want freedom. It's not about
So you don't want to end the blockade?
The dictatorship.
The blockade is
I'm
good?
the one who has the blockade.
Okay, so you support sanctions on Cuba. You support preventing your own people from getting medicine. That's what you support? So I just want to be clear, this is a pro-blockade, pro-Cuban demonstration. You support the blockade? You support the blockade? So as you just saw, these protesters do not want to actually help the Cuban people. They support the blockade. They were very clear. They support sanctions on Cuba, preventing Cubans from getting medicine, preventing Cubans from getting access to important food goods and medical supplies. They're speaking in the name of the Cuban people, but they're actually in support of preventing the Cuban people from getting food and medicine. They don't really support the Cuban people. These are just pro-State Department activists. These are regime change activists. They want Cuba to be the new Libya. They want Cuba to be the new Iraq or the new Afghanistan or the new Syria. They don't really support their own people. They just want their people to suffer to carry out their political agenda. They don't like the Communist Party. It has nothing to do with helping the Cuban people. You heard them yourselves.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the things about being, my office, the RT studio before it shut down was right near the UN. And so every time there'd be one of these, from different governments around the world, you could go and just mess with them. And you could go and just confront them. And they, it drove them crazy because it's like it never occurs to them that anyone could disagree with them because they're here in the United States. And because they're in the United States, they assume that everyone's just going to let them, go along with State Department lies about their homeland. I actually messed with the Mujahideen Khalq of Iran, and they're actually the MEK. This is a group that murdered Americans, that was designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department for many years. But now they're killing Iran and they're working with Israel against Iran. So they're delisted as terrorists. And I messed with them. This one got me a lot of hate. Let me just put it that way. There were like segments about this on the broadcast into Iran from the United States about me doing this. This was wild.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So, why was the Mujahideen Khalq declared a terrorist organization by the United States Department?
I tell you, because Iranian government give them a lots of money and lots of effort, lots of free oil to put them in a terrorist list so they can.
And why did you work with Saddam Hussein?
We didn't work with Saddam Hussein.
You didn't work with Saddam Hussein.
No,
you
no,
weren't.
sir.
You weren't airdropped into Iran. The Iranian National Liberation Army never happened. Never happened. Oh, okay.
Who can have an airdrop when you don't have air?
During the Iraq-Iran War, the Iranian National Liberation Army was airdropped into Iran, razed villages, slaughtered people from Iraq.
That's Saddam. You can talk to
Yes,
Saddam
who
about
sponsored
Saddam.
your organization
No,
for
that's not-
years.
that's not-
You killed Americans. You killed Americans. In the 1970s, under the Shah, you assassinated Americans. You guys are terrorists. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Go educate yourself. Don't tell me I'm a terrorist.
Our government shouldn't be working with you all. You're murderers and you're terrorists. You killed thousands of innocent Iranians. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You killed scientists, people that were just teaching classes on scientists. You work with Israel, you're murderers, you're terrorists, you killed Americans. Americans like me have been killed by your organization. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, those were the days, you know. So yeah, and I would just walk outside during downtimes at work and confront these people. It was pretty wild. Oh, you want the link? Sure, I can link you that. Here's me confronting MEK. You got to be careful doing this, though. You know, this is a kind of a don't try this at home situation, because one thing you have to be really careful with this is you do not want to get into a physical altercation with these people. Because you know, you can be in court for the rest of your life, and you know, and all that. And that was one thing. Whenever I interviewed these people, I was thinking, like, how do I run out of here as quick as I can? Because you know, you could not throw a single punch, but if you get into a fist fight with these people, you'll be going to court for the rest of your life, and they'll charge you with assault, and you know, and all of that. So, you know, I would taunt these people with my phone. I would confront them, but I always had an escape route. I was always looking over my shoulder. I would end the interview as quickly as I could. You know, you got to be really careful. It's very risky to do. But anyway, anywho, you know, yeah. So there you go. All right, folks. Well, yeah, it's just been kind of an evening check-in, and I do have to get up early tomorrow. So names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Here's the link for that one if you want it, Alex. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. We got Isaac in Vancouver. Welcome. Utica, New York. Mark Jones. Welcome. Shanty in Mexico. Welcome. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Alex Rickle in Oregon. Alex in Oakville, Ontario. Carolyn and Dario from Brooklyn. JT24 in Mississippi. Brett in Seattle. Patch in Arizona. Jenny Lynn in Cincinnati. South Africa, Master Jack. Balthazar in Oakland. Scott in Maryland. Jacob in Wisconsin. Slava in Chicago. Color Revolution Truth Teller. Jeff in Delaware. UP, Michigan. Chas Beretta in Folkestan. Right? Kieran from San Diego. Jeff in Delaware. Ottawa, Canada. Welcome. Names and locations. Anybody else with us tonight? Names and locations. Anthony in Detroit. Welcome. Zoha from Iran. Welcome, Zoha. Gabby says hi, and hi to you, Gabby. Joe, currently driving 77 Northwest, West Virginia, on my way to Cleveland. Enjoy yourself, Joe. Nobody messes with Joe. Anna in Russia. Dave in Rochester. Alex in Brazil. Gabby in Chicago. Don in Bangkok. Welcome, Don. Don Prasak in Bangkok. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Anybody else? Sherry in Cape May. Welcome, Sherry. Eric in Holland. Welcome, Eric. Tomas in Malaysia. Welcome, Tomas. Briggy in Pennsylvania. It is hot tonight. It's hot here in New York, too. It started to cool down now that the sun is down, but it was a hot day in New York. And it was one of those days where, I got up, I had to go into the city, and then I came home and I did some work, and I'm just, I didn't even think of a news hook. I just thought, hey, Friday night check-in. How's everybody doing? Cleveland, Ohio. Dustin Schlesinger. Very good. Patrick in Maine. But yeah. All right, folks. All right. So this is the part of the show where I answer your super chat questions. We got Doug in Santa Barbara. Very good. Ellie in Chicago. Welcome. I can give a couple updates. Speaking of Chicago. So we are going to have the Center for Political Innovation's National Convention in Chicago next summer. We're going to do that. So we've got certain organizational goals around that. So if you are a member of CPI, start making arrangements now to come to Chicago next July. It'll be in mid-July next summer. We are going to have a national convention. It'll be a full mobilization. We are going to go all out with this convention in terms of the amount of fundraising we can do between now and then and all of that. This is going to be a massive event. Let me just put it that way. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We'll keep it an internal discussion, but this will be the biggest event we've ever done because we've got a whole year to plan it, right? I mean, we've never planned an event this far out before. So we are going to have a convention in Chicago next summer that will be massive. It will be absolutely massive. And we're going to have builder events for it in different regions all year long. And it's going to be, we're going to be having builder events throughout the coming year. And next July in Chicago, we are going to have a national convention. And it is going to be something else. So if you're a CPI member, make sure you arrange to be in Chicago for a week or so, at least. We're going to need people on the ground. We're going to have buses from different parts of the region. And it's going to be a full mobilization. The convention that's happening next summer is going to be, we have never gone this all out with an event before. We're thinking about, we don't want it to just sound like another CPI event too, because we've done a lot of conventions. We usually give it some name, a theme around anti-imperialism or something like that. But this year is going to be, it's going to be different, right? We are going to go all in, and we're going to get a much bigger venue than we normally get. And we are going to have buses coming in from different cities, and we're working with different community groups. And this is going to be, this convention, we're doing something a little bit different. And yes, we're going to have builder events around the country. We're going to have some weekend workshops. We're going to have some, local, evening events to build it. We did that for the last convention. Last convention we did in Oregon. We had about 160 people there. We had about 160. So that's decent, right? I mean, there was a time when we were having events with 10 people or whatever, and, 160. It was our biggest event, unless you count the after party we did for the Rage Against the War Machine rally. That's where Scott Ritter, that counts, right? But it was after the Rage Against the War Machine rally, right? So let me see if I can, Scott Ritter, was banned from speaking, or he was more or less forced out of speaking at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. So we had this after party for Scott Ritter. We rented a hotel near the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and we featured Scott Ritter. And it was pretty decent. It was a pretty decent crowd. And some people say the numbers there were people put the numbers there at the event at about 160 to 200. Some people say that at the beginning of the event during Scott's talk, there was a full 200 people there. So that was maybe slightly bigger, but we were taking people from the Rage Against the War Machine rally. That was the main thing. I mean, it wasn't our crowd, right? We kind of pulled the crowd from the Rage Against the War Machine rally to come to our event. And that was about 200. I'll pull up the clip from that, the clip that we all love, right? The moment when Scott came to the podium was just epic. That was a really, really great moment when Scott Ritter came up to the podium. I'm going to find that short for you all, because it was just, and it meant the world to Scott too, because Scott has been so badly smeared, so badly smeared. And, we had our reception after the Rage Against the War Machine rally. Here we go. This was the moment when Scott came to the podium.
This is a hero. This is a hero right here. We love you, Scott. We love you. Go ahead and give us some words. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. To be honest, I thought I was just coming here to a reception to say hi to people and speak at his.
This is a hero. This is a hero right here. We love you, Scott. We love you. Go ahead.
Yeah, that I guess probably is the biggest event CPI's ever had, but we didn't generate the crowd. It came from the event that we did at the it came from the Rage Against the War Machine event, right? But I guess our convention in Oregon, right? We did have 160 people at our convention in Oregon. right? So let me put that on the screen. We'll show you the opening of our convention in Oregon. It was pretty cool. All right. I'll just put that on the screen. That was pretty neat. And that was about 160. I mean, it filled up a little bit more as the day went on, actually. It was, it got up to about 200. It was about 160 when the event started. And it got up to about 200 throughout the day. And we didn't really have very long to build that event. We did one builder event. I flew up to Oregon. We had a movie showing where I got to meet up with the team there. We had a movie showing, etc. Oregon, not Oregon. There you go. Oregon. But anyway, there we go. Ronald Reagan, right? But there we go. But yeah, this was the opening of the convention in Oregon.
Dare to struggle.
Dare to win.
Dare to struggle.
Dare to win.
Dare to struggle.
Dare to win.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very honored to be here at this CPI event. The opening plenary is going to be about the peace movement that we urgently need. That phrase in the Bible. And fought for.
Now we do the pledge.
I would like everyone to stand up for the pledge. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. We pledge that we shall remember this unity.
We pledge that we shall remember this unity.
Forged at the end of the Second World War.
Forged at the end of the Second World War.
Not only today, not only this week, this year, but always.
Not only today, not only this year,
but always. Until we have built the world we have dreamed of and fought for.
Until we have built the world we have dreamed of and fought for.
We pledge ourselves to build the unity of the people of the world.
We pledge ourselves to build the unity of the people of the world.
All races, all colors, all nationalities, all beliefs.
All races, all colors, all nationalities, all beliefs.
To eliminate all traces of fascism from the earth.
To eliminate all traces of fascism from the earth.
To build a deep and sincere international friendship among the peoples of the world.
To build a deep and sincere international friendship among the peoples of the world.
To keep a just, lasting peace, to eliminate want, frustration, and enforced idleness.
To keep a just, lasting peace, to eliminate want, frustration, and enforced idleness.
We have come to confirm the unity of all people, to salute our comrades who have died.
We have come to confirm the unity of all people, to salute our comrades who have died.
And pledge our word that skillful hands, keen brains, and bold enthusiasm.
And pledge our word that skillful hands, keen brains, and bold enthusiasm
shall never more be wasted in war.
Shall never more be wasted in war.
Put your hands down and remain standing for the flag ceremony.
From the bottom, an American family shall have a homestead, a home, none in poverty, none in pestilence, none in want, but in the land blessed by the smile of the Creator. We will continue every effort to end monopoly in business, to support collective bargaining, to stop unfair competition, and to abolish dishonorable trade practices. And for all these, we have only just begun. CPI! 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 Dare to struggle! Dare to struggle! Dare to
You may all take a seat.
Yeah, so that was our last convention that we did in December. And so next July we will do our second national convention. Our aim is to have 400 people there, right? That convention you just saw had 160. Our goal will be to get 400 people to the next convention, which I think we can do. I have a variety of different ideas, and if we do appropriate builder events and we have the right allies building for it and all of that, I am convinced that our upcoming event, we can very easily fill an auditorium in the Chicago area with 400 people. I think we can do it. I'm very excited about doing it, and I'm very excited about all the people in our community who are excited about making it happen. Right? We, as a group, we're excited to make it happen. Whenever we pull something off together, it feels awesome. It feels awesome. So yeah. So now is the part of the stream. Oh yeah, we'll easily do 400 people, right? But we're looking into venues that can hold that much, right? We can easily do 400 people. We've done conferences at hotels in the past. But I think that this one, we're going to try to do at a theater or a convention center or something. And anyway, long story short, I'm confident we can fill it up. We can fill it up. But we got a year to figure it out, a year to make alliances and all of that. Buses from the different parts of Chicagoland. That's the good thing about Chicago. You got Detroit up there. You got Indiana over there. You got Minnesota over there. It's like we can be feeding people in from many different areas. That's why I think it won't be hard. We had buses from Seattle to the Oregon convention. We had like one bus from Seattle, but I am convinced with a year in advance with some feeder events in the area to excite people to come, I am convinced we can very easily fill an auditorium of 400 people for a major anti-imperialist rally in summer of 2025. We will have a major anti-imperialist rally. And the other thing that we did for the Oregon convention is we had the night before. Here, I'll show you the night before. We had the World Anti-Imperialist Platform event, right? We had the platform event the night before with Joe T. Brar, and we had the Palestine rally the day before that. Where Peter Coffin and myself and a few others, we marched through the streets of the city with Palestine flags to do outreach, and we had the religious meeting the next day. And then we had a weekend workshop the next weekend. So that's what we'll do when we go to Chicago. It won't just be one day, right? We will have a weekend workshop afterwards, like we did. We will have feeder events. We'll have rallies beforehand. We'll make sure that, it's worth it. And that's why if you're a CPI member, right, you got a whole year. You got a whole year. You got a whole year here. In this year, make arrangements to be in Chicago for a week, right? So that you can not just be there for the convention, but be there the day before. We're going to do something. The day afterwards, we're going to do something. We're going to make sure that we make our mark on Chicago. We will make our mark on Chicago, right? Because Chicago is in the heartland. It is the center of the United States, and it's going to be very, very important. And we will for the week, the week in mid-July, we will leave our mark on Chicago, to be sure, next summer. So, start making arrangements and start getting everything in order. That's what I would urge you to do. If you are a CPI member, start making arrangements. If you're in Minnesota, if you're in Detroit, if you're in Cleveland, if you're in any place that is like driving distance from Chicago, start thinking about a builder event. We're going to have a series of different builder events, where I'll go to the area and meet people and all of that and just start figuring it out. Right. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat from Chicago. There's a lot of people in the chat from various parts of the country. Start figuring out a builder event in your area. Think about when would be good for me to come out to Detroit, to Minneapolis, to Milwaukee, to St. Louis, Missouri, or wherever. And we're going to figure this out. We got a year to build this convention. and we're going to get at least 400 people, probably 500 or 600. So there you go. There you go. I am very, very excited about it. We are going to have a dynamic event. We're going to take things to another level, and we got a whole year to plan it out, but we need to really build. So there we go. There we go. So start making plans to come to Chicago for at least a week, maybe 2. So there we go. A few days after, a few days beforehand. But yeah, like the night before the Oregon convention, this was the night before the convention. All the people who came to town, we had, our event. Our event to build the World Anti-Imperialist Platform, and it was with Peace USA and with the World Anti-Imperialist Platform, we had this event.
Okay.
So
there you go. Okay.
This was like
Just
the
wanted
team.
to let you know that.
This was like the team of people that came to town to help us build the convention, from different parts of the city. And that's Sam Bismuth-Hertz, and then we had kind of an evening event, and then Jyoti Brar was the main speaker, our friend from Britain, from the Communist Party of Great Britain. But we sang at this.
The deed and vow, we must not change its color now. Then raise the scarlet standard high. Within its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here.
It's Christmas time, we thought that, at Christmas time people sing "Oh Christmas Tree," but it's the same tune as the Red Flag song. So there we go. So yeah, and then we ended with Whirlwinds of Danger.
Still in the fight, see advancing before us, red flag of liberty that yet shall prevail. Then forward, ye workers, freedom awaits you o'er all the world, on land and on sea. On with the fight for the cause of humanity. March, march, you toilers, and the world shall be free. Brothers and sisters in hunger are calling. Shall we be silent to their sorrow and woe? While in the fight, see our comrades are falling. Up then unite and conquer the foe. Then forward, ye workers, freedom awaits you o'er the world, on land and on sea. On with the fight for the cause of humanity. March, march, you toilers, and the world shall be free. Off with the crowns of the tyrants of favor. Down in the dust will the princes appear. Strike off your chains, sons and daughters of labor. Wake all humanity, for victory is near. Then forward, ye workers, freedom awaits you o'er the world, on land and on sea. On with the fight for the cause of humanity. March, march, you toilers, and the world shall be free.
Dare to struggle!
Dare to win!
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 All right. See you all at 8 tomorrow. Doors open officially at 10. All right, let's do it. All right.
Yeah, we had a good crew of people in town. That was the people that were in town. And, it was just, we're going to do, events surrounding the convention, and then we'll have the big day of the convention. It's going to be awesome. So I am very, very, very excited. Anyway, so now is the part where I answer your super chat questions. So I do want to remind you all, I live in New York City. You've probably all heard, my rent is too damn high. I have an extra bedroom, so that I can stream frequently. I've been streaming every night. I've streamed every night this week, 5 nights in a row. And I'll stream tomorrow, and then I'll take Sunday off. But on Sunday, we're going to have another long video premiere of just some of our classic content. But yeah, so if you can send a super chat, get me talking, that would be appreciated. Give me something to talk about, and also support this channel. Much appreciated. I do appreciate it. The super chats help me help me afford this extra bedroom so I can stream on here. So, all right, I'm going to start answering people's questions. And do we have any Rumble rants? No Rumble rants, but we've got a number of super chats. So, Noam Chomsky died. No, he didn't. That was fake news. That was fake news. One time I was in Washington, D.C. I was interviewing random people on the street. We call it Vox Pops, you know. And a guy asked me who I was working for, told him my news agency, and he said, "Is that fake news?" And I thought, fake news, fake New Jersey, fake Wisconsin. And I realized, no, he's from the South. It was fake. He meant fake. It's not real. It's fake. Is that fake news, right? And Noam Chomsky is not dead. He did have a stroke. He was in the hospital, but he's very well alive. That was fake news. He is not confirmed to be dead. He is living. All right. But yeah, isn't that weird how these things go? But was he an influence on my politics? After 9/11, he was the only voice that was out there kind of calling out U.S. imperialism in the aftermath of 9/11. And, you know, he was kind of the symbol of left opposition to U.S. foreign policy. So that's when I read Power and Terror, and I read his book 9/11 and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, if you get interested in like socialism back then, I should say, if you got interested in socialism and communism, he was one of the only people you'd find at like Barnes and Noble. So yeah, I mean, he was, you know, he was there. I mean, yeah, I got DVDs from the library and I listened to audio recordings and yep. Yes, sir. Yeah. If you were an anti-war leftist in the early years of the 21st century, you were influenced by him for sure. He's a very boring speaker. I'll just tell you that much, but you know, yeah, I mean, I have a lot I could say about Noam Chomsky. But I will, you know, he ain't dead. So we'll wait until he actually dies. He's 95. So, you know, I mean, that could be any day now, but it might not be for years. He could live to be 100. You know, but, you know, I mean, yes, he was certainly an influence on me for sure. I've done a critique of his, you know, anti-Lenin rant, the anti-Lenin rant that's quite popular of his. I've done a critique of it for this YouTube channel, one of my more popular videos. All right. Will the alienation of anti-imperialist countries create a new Warsaw Pact? You know, here's the thing about that, right? Now, to you and me, those of us who come from a communist background, a new Warsaw Pact sounds really, really exciting. To the world and to the socialist countries, that does not sound exciting. Commie-Con was locked out of the rest of the world economy, right? You know, people in the Warsaw Pact countries, they had healthcare, they had education, they had guaranteed employment, but they couldn't get bananas. They couldn't get a lot of Western goods. There was very much, it was you were either with the Western economy or you were with the Commie-Con. And there is a commitment on the part of the communist governments and anti-imperialist governments around the world. They don't want that to happen. And there's very much a feeling on the part of the imperialists that they don't want that to happen necessarily either. Now, with all the crazy sanctions that are happening, the good thing about the BRICS, though, is in the BRICS, there's a lot of countries that are not full-on anti-imperialists, like India, right? Like Brazil. And that's important, right? And I think that's why the BRICS is being, that's why a lot of the revolutionary governments like North Korea, for example, are not joining the BRICS because they don't want the BRICS to be a new Warsaw Pact. They want there to be, they don't want to isolate themselves from the world economy. They don't want it, you either trade with them or you trade with the US. They want there to be room for a lot of countries to be in the middle so that they don't have that same economic blockade effect that they had. You know, yeah. So there you go. And that's important, right? And again, this is something that, again, in our little communist bubble, we might be like, yeah, new Warsaw Pact. But no, actually, no. The people who lived under the Warsaw Pact, the anti-imperialist governments themselves, they don't want a new Warsaw Pact. We should want trade with China. We should want trade with Russia, right? We should not advocate, you know, dividing the world into blocks again, right? And the policy of the anti-imperialist states is that, right? And you have to remember that, right? And look, I mean, two things. First of all, right, you know, 20th century communism is never coming back, right? Marxism, Leninism is the foundation of global anti-imperialism, right? You could not have Bolivarian socialism in Latin America without Marxism, Leninism. You could not have Ba'athist Arab socialism in the Arab world without Marxism, Leninism. You couldn't have socialism with Chinese characteristics in China without Marxism, Leninism. You couldn't, dare I say it, and the Iranians wouldn't like it if I said this, you couldn't even have the Islamic Revolution of Iran without Marxism-Leninism. Marxism-Leninism laid the foundation of global anti-imperialism. But that said, it's not coming back, right? It is the basis of a global anti-imperialist movement, but 21st century socialism looks a lot different than that. Right? You need a market sector for things that make life enjoyable. You need to, I think faith in God and Christianity is actually going to be, or at least religion and religious collectivism is going to be a very important part of socialism in the 21st century. And it already is in Latin America, and that the global socialist and communist movement has moved on from the Cold War way of doing things. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that, that you have to remember okay, so Cold War communism is not coming back, number one. And in addition to that, in addition to the fact that Cold War communism is not coming back, every country has its own road to socialism and its own form of socialism. And socialism in every country is going to adopt unique characteristics. And the point of socialism is to create economic growth. The higher stage of communism requires vast technological abundance, right? The only way you can have a society completely free of all inequality and completely free of class divisions and the need for a state is if you create vast abundance. The point of socialism is economic growth. So yeah, there you go. There you go. All righty. All righty. Yeah, Jerry, we talk about that. It's not important. At the end of the day, it happened, but they failed. They completely failed. And those losers have to be just looking themselves in the tummy and going, oh yeah, they all thought they were going to destroy our organization. And today, CPI, if you look at what we did in the year of 2023, we did more in the year of 2023 after we were supposedly destroyed and never going to come back than we did the entire time in our existence before that. And we are marching ahead. This year, we were at the World Youth Festival. We gave a UN press conference. We are doing so much at this point. We're about to do a national door knocking awareness campaign. The Uhuru movement has gone out of their way to thank us for all the solidarity that we've given them. We have done so much. So, you can focus on the bad. We can focus on the ways we've been attacked. But in a way, in the Little Red Book by Mao Zedong, he says to be attacked by the enemy is a good thing and not a bad thing, right? And that, it's a compliment, right? We are listed in everything. They recently published Texty, the Ukrainian government disinformation, whatever. They listed us. We got a special section, right? John McCarthy in Chicago wrote an article about it for our website. We got a special section in the Ukrainian government's hit piece, in the Ukrainian government's piece smearing us. We got a special mention. They even made a neat graphic, where they showed CPI. We're part of the vast conspiracy against the American way of life. The vast communist plot. Look at that. They made a nice graphic, and there's Center for Political Innovation right there next to Gray Zone and Angela McCurdle and Rage Against the War Machine. And it's so awesome. Right. We are very important. Right. We've been targeted in a lot of ways. I'm on the Ukrainian kill list. Yes. Liars. I'm not going to go into detail, but people were sent into our group. People were paid money, cash to, talk against me and to talk against CPI. But that was actually very helpful. And I'll just be real with you. It was very helpful because there were things in our organizational structure that needed to change. There were people in CPI in important positions where they could do a lot of damage, who had never read any of our books, who didn't really want to build the organization. They just knew that we had money. Maybe we could create a media outlet or whatever. They were helpful in some way. There were people in very sensitive positions who didn't belong in the organization. Okay. And that mess, it was a purge, and we didn't have to do it ourselves, right? We didn't have to go around looking for traitors. They all revealed themselves, right? And it was interesting because there were people in CPI, like our president, Elizabeth Young, who was fully on board, had read every single one of our books, was like the most dedicated member, and she'd gotten overlooked because, it's like, it was a kind of a squeaky oil gets the grease scenario. We didn't know. And then there were people who were very who didn't belong in CPI, and they all left. They were out, and it's great because you need to see who your friends and who your enemies are. I mean, there were people that I didn't know how loyal they were and how committed they were to this project, who stepped right up to the plate amid that. And on top of that, there were also people that I thought were friends and allies who were backstabbing pieces of shit, right? Who basically they were jealous of me, and they weren't part of the initial attack, but they basically, when the attack revealed itself, they just revealed they were just jealous of me the whole time, and they found ways to remove themselves as well. So, I mean, I actually think the whole thing, something like that was gonna happen. Certain cards were going to be played against me one way or another, and whatever. It's all done. It's been 2 years now, for fuck's sake. It's all over with, and look, there are some people that did not belong in the organization. And if people couldn't withstand that whole thing, they didn't belong in the group, right? Because if you can't stand people talking smack on the internet, imagine if the FBI comes and knocks on your door. Imagine if somebody gets arrested. I mean, I'm sorry, but some people aren't cut out for this, right? And some of the stuff that was said is hilarious if you look back on it. I mean, this one girl claims to be a communist, and she was whining, "Oh my God, Caleb wanted me to go on a trip to Venezuela. Oh my God, it was so scary." Why the fuck are you a communist, right? I wasn't pressuring you to go to Venezuela. I wasn't telling you to go to Venezuela. You said you didn't want to go, and I said, okay. And then you got all embarrassed, and you're like, "Oh, you think you're better than," and she had this whole meltdown because she didn't want to go to Venezuela. And then she writes on there, "Oh my God, he was pressuring me to go to Venezuela, and that's so scary." And it's like, you look at that, and it's like, if you think, first of all, I wasn't pressuring anybody, and second of all, if that's your response, you don't belong in this organization. And that there are a lot of people. There's a reason the Red Flag song. The people's flag is deepest. What's the chorus? Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. There you go. Right? And it's true. Cowards flinch, traitors sneer. And now we know who the cowards and traitors are. And now that's why we have done so much more since that whole shenanigan, is because all the cowards flinched and all the traitors sneered. And now we have a group of people that are committed. One thing I will say, yeah, exactly, Funky. Sometimes you got to take out the trash, one thing I will say, is that with that whole thing, right? What was I going to say? I was actually going to make one other point about that, but what was I going to say? I don't even remember what I was going to say. The point slipped out of my head. But it's all done, and we're stronger as a result. And, this is what I was going to say, right? I will say this, right? We need people in CPI who are committed to building an organization, because there are a lot of young men who join CPI, young men. And I'm sure a woman could come along who's like this, but women are so much better than men. I'll just be real. In terms of organizing and building an organization, women are way better than men. Women have patience in ways that men don't. Women have empathy in ways that men don't, right? Men are much harder to organize with than women. I'll be real. If women are gold, because women are much better organizers than men. And I say that as a man. And I'm just telling you, I think about my own mistakes that I've made over the years. Women are so much better organizers than men. There's a lot of young men who do come around who are not in it for a group, right? They're in it because they think I might be able to build my social media by being here. They're in it because they see the group as a platform or something. And it's a problem, right? And we are looking for people who want to build the group, right? And that is something that people miss, right? There has been a tendency on our part of like, oh, this person can give a good speech, put them on the stage. Oh, this, and no, we need to see people are really committed to the group. Peter Coffin, great speaker, great filmmaker, but he's also super committed to our group, right? He has his own social media personality, which is great. He does his own videos, great, but he's super committed to the group. In his videos, he talks about CPI and why you should join. He makes documentaries about our conventions and what CPI is all about. Peter, right? He may have his own following, but he's pro CPI, right? And that's what we're looking for, because there are a lot of these guys who come around and they have their own social media, they have their own YouTube, but they're really not in it to build the group. And we're on the lookout for that now, because we've dealt with more than a few guys like that. And they come around and they're just like, oh, this group might get me some attention. This group, and it's like, doesn't work that way. We need people to show that they are committed to the group. Peter is a great example of that. Peter is now on our board of directors, right? Peter Coffin is great. But there are other people I could name, I'm not going to, who have come around and they have kind of their own following, their own thing. And then it's like they don't understand that being in the group means if the group has a national convention, you find a way, if possible, to come and help out. It means you donate money to the group. It means you come on our Zoom calls and all of that. I mean, people are welcome to just join CPI. They're welcome to just do that. I mean, you can join. We have a lot of members who join and, are not active, and that's fine. It's $10 a month to join. It's open for anyone to join. But part of being in CPI is you have to be an organizer. And before we're going to put you on the stage and before we're going to give you a lot of attention, you have to show you're committed to the group, right? And that is really, really important, right? You have to show that you are pro party. One thing that I always heard, and I always thought this is interesting, is if you're in a communist organization and you disagree with the party line, the best way to argue for your position is to work your butt off for the party. You might say that's crazy. Well, I disagree with the line, so I'm not going to work hard. Well, then why should they listen to you? As someone who's now in leadership, right? I'm the ideological leader of CPI. I know how true that is, because if somebody is working their butt off to build the group, I am going to be concerned about what their line is. And I'm going to take their disagreement much more seriously. Right. And this is something I heard years ago when I was in communist groups. It's actually really, really true. That if you disagree with the line of your political organization, make yourself essential, right? Be the person who raises the money, be the person who sets up all the meetings, be the person who does important work and gets stuff done. And you can be sure that the party leadership, because you're working so hard, is going to have to listen to you, right? And that people, that might sound moralizing, like, oh, well, just be really good and then they'll listen. It's not moralizing. It's actually true. The people who do the work of the organization, their opinion is far more valued by the leadership, because we need them to do the work of the group. And so we're going to value their opinion more. And so if you disagree with the line, or if you disagree with the line of your party and you want to change your party's political line, the way to do it is to work really, really hard and become an essential organizer in the group and get stuff done. And then the leadership is going to have to take your position seriously. And I saw that happen in political groups I was in. And I actually saw it happen in kind of a negative way. There'd be people who weren't very good politically, but they would come in, they were available to do all the work and all of that. And the party would pivot, in a negative direction. So it doesn't honestly just work. It doesn't completely work in a good way necessarily, but the people who do the work of the organization, they tend to be the ones that have the most influence over the political line, right? You might think it's one man, one vote, but at the end of the day, an organization isn't just about how many memberships you have. It's about the activities of the organization. Right? And a lot of people don't even understand what being in an organization is, right? People think that being in it's just an internet fandom, you know what I mean? And they have no idea, right? Look, there are literally people trying to copy CPI right now. Not going to say who. They're doing a shitty job of it. And I'm trying not to pay attention to it. I try to have tunnel vision, but I see people trying to copy CPI and I get a grin on my face and I'm just like, look, just because you won the internet doesn't mean you win in real life, right? And a lot of people can't understand that, right? A lot of people look at what CPI has been doing and they think, oh, anybody can do that. Yeah, good luck with that. And I've seen a lot of people try to do what CPI does and fall on their faces. And it's frustrating because why not just do it with us? Right? Why not just do it with us? And that's one thing I don't understand, is that there is an element of this, no, I must have the group where I am the great leader. You know, we promote people in CPI. We give, I mean, we're not trying to like, you don't have to like, crush your ego to be in CPI completely. We allow people to write and speak, but all these young men, they come around, a lot of them, and it's like, well, no, I must form my own organization because I must. And it's just like, look, the reason we're called CPI, we're not called, the word party is not part of our name. The P in CPI does not stand for party. We don't think we're the Bolsheviks. We're not the Bolsheviks. We're a socialist education project. There is nobody in America who's the Bolsheviks. Okay. We're not pretending we're the vanguard party. We're not pretending that we're the, no, we're a socialist. We're a group that wants to educate people about anti-imperialism and socialism. We have a job to do and we want to do it. And that's it. And that's a very humble thing to admit, right? We're not pretending we're something we're not, which is what most communists in America are doing. They all are. None of these groups are a party. CPUSA stopped being a party in the 50s. Right. The PSL is not a party. None of these groups are parties. Right. These are little political activist currents, which is a little bit generous. Some of them are ideological tendencies, but none of them are a party. A party has influence over millions of people. A party is leading trade unions and has people in neighborhood. I mean, nothing in the United States that speaks in the name of socialism is a party at this point. Okay. Nothing. Right? There are people who may aspire to be like a party, but none of them actually are a party. And none of them are a party. And we don't pretend to be a party, right? Maybe, someday something like a party will emerge and we'll be part of it. I'm sure. But I've often made the analogy that a party is like an orchestra, and an orchestra, it has a trombone, it has a bass drum, it has a piano, and an orchestra has many different instruments in it. And, a party is like that. A party has a newspaper, a party has a labor union division, a party runs people for office, a party has community associations, a party has educational, and youth organization. I mean, parties are a vast thing. We are one instrument in the orchestra. We are the educational wing. We are a socialist education project. That's what we are. And we have there's a job that needs to get done that nobody else is doing, and we're doing it. And that's educating people about anti-imperialism and 21st century socialism, and doing it in a way that we're actually like in line with where the global communist movement is. The global communist movement doesn't hate God at this point. It's not anti-religious. The global communist movement definitely isn't woke and obsessed with the transgender thing, right? There is an anti-imperialist bloc that includes, countries like Iran, countries like Venezuela, countries like Nicaragua, etc. And that is the future. And the only hope that America has is eventually joining with that. And let's be clear, we are not anti-American. Let's just be clear about that. We are pro-American, because the only future that America could possibly have is as part of a multipolar world, as part of the new economy. So we are the true patriots. We love our country so much that we want to point our country toward the only possible good future it could have, right? And a lot of these people are just kind of expressing, their alienation. They want everyone to know how much they hate America, how much they identify with the enemy ideology. And we're not that. We don't hate America. We love America. And because we love America, we realize that only socialism and anti-imperialism can bring a good future to America. And again, people don't want to hear that. They want socialism to just be an expression of how alienated and upset they are. They don't get it. All right, enough on that. We spent way too much time on that. Do you salsa or do you meringue? I don't think I do anything. My wife and I will dance sometimes. My wife will be like, dance with me. And so I'll dance with my wife sometimes. But I don't think I do anything that could properly be called salsa because, I think salsa is like a really serious form of dance. And I just kind of dance with my wife sometimes, or I go to parties with my wife, with Latin American folks. I do a little bit of dancing, etc. But I don't think I do anything that is really salsa. And as far as meringue, I don't meringue. I don't even know what that looks like or is. So there you go. Conspiracy theorists are usually proven correct. Well, first of all, right, a conspiracy theory doesn't, by definition, have to be false, right, or crazy, right? I mean, every theory of 9/11 is a conspiracy theory. Somebody, unless you think that it was just a random accident, you know, the plane took, two planes took a wrong turn and hit the World Trade Center, you think that 9/11 was somebody conspiring. The question is, who conspired? Now, there's the official story of who conspired to do 9/11. Then there are alternative theories, right? But every theory of 9/11 is a conspiracy theory, right? And just because you have a theory, something you believe to be true based on certain evidence, but don't know for sure, and it involves people conspiring, which is coming together to, you know, accomplish a goal, doesn't make it false, right? The word conspiracy theory actually became tainted, and we now have, you know, I believe there's an FBI memo that came out where it was like they actually made the word conspiracy theory into something that was like mocked. You've got a conspiracy theory, you know, and if you actually look at it, right, the word conspiracy, in essence, right, someone can have a false conspiracy theory, someone can have an outrageous conspiracy theory, but every prosecutor in every criminal trial usually has a conspiracy theory, right? You know, especially if it's a conspiracy, you know, so the actual conspiracy theory, you know, is not, you know, the fact that we shout conspiracy theory at something, that doesn't disprove it, right? You should say outrageous. You should say you don't have evidence. And I don't agree with you, Jerry. There are a lot of things that people say on the internet that are bull honking. You know, I think the moon landing happened. I don't think the moon landing was fake. You know, there's many examples of that. There are a lot of things that people believe that are in the category of conspiracy theories that are bull honky. But there are a lot of things that get labeled conspiracy theories that are true. And there's a lot of things that are not disputed by the establishment. But if you just start talking a certain way, they call it conspiracy theories. And that's what I've noticed is the most disturbing thing about mainstream media now. You can start saying things that are true, and the person will acknowledge everything that you're saying is true. And they'll say, well, that's conspiracy theories, because they don't like where your mind is going. They don't like, and it's like it's like they don't like your interpretation of the events. They're not denying the events. They just don't like the way you're framing them. And I've noticed that with liberals now, especially. They say things are conspiracy theories, and they're like, wait, what do you disagree with that I just said? And I agree with everything you said, but the way you're talking right now and the way you're saying that Russia might not be bad, that's a conspiracy. It's like, wait, where's the, you know, so there you go. Enough said about that, Jerry. I don't use that word anymore. I try my hardest to avoid that four-letter word, CULT. And the reason I try to avoid it is because it has no real meaning at this point. Okay. You know, there's a word in Spanish, secta, right? And that's what that word used to mean. Cult used to mean secta, right? I remember when I was a young kid, my church had the church library, and it was a little room in my church, the little mainline Protestant church in my little town in Ohio. They had a whole bunch of old dusty church books from like the 1920s and 30s. And there was an old book called The Four Major Cults. And chapter 1, Mormonism. Chapter 2, Seventh-day Adventism. Chapter 3, Christian Science. Chapter 4, Jehovah's Witness. Right? Now, those are four religious groups in the United States that are very small, but the adherents of them, they're like much more demanding than your typical religion. You know, and if you go to the Middle East, in the Middle East, you've got Jews, Christians, and Muslims, but you also have Alawites, you have Yazidis, you have Druze, you have very, very small religious groups that are very fanatical, right? And that's what that word used to mean. Cult used to mean that. In the 70s, the word cult took on a totally different connotation. And it basically just means illiberalism. It means group that goes against the liberal order. And, you know, it started out, you know, there was the whole brainwashing scare, which was an anti-communism thing, right? It was, you know, these U.S. troops were being brainwashed on the Korean Peninsula. And then in the 70s, you know, you had a lot of political groups that emerged in the 1970s. There was a big fight in the ruling class in the 1960s and 70s in the United States, the Yankee and Cowboy War. In my book, Where is America Going? Marxism, MAGA, and the Coming Revolution, I actually have a chapter called, if you read this book, which Tyler McConnell has done an audio book of this book. This is a book that I wrote. Tyler McConnell has done a great audio book of it. You can actually listen to it. I'll pull up Tyler's audio book of the book because it's, you know, a lot of people don't want to sit there and read an actual book. So, you know, listen to the audio book while you clean your closet or you take a shower in the morning. But I wrote an audio book. There's an audio book of it. But, you know, Tyler recorded this audio book of it. But it's called Marxism, MAGA, and the Coming Revolution. Where is America Going? And chapter 3 of my book, it's 4 chapters long, right? Chapter 3 of my book is called Counter Gangs and Revolutionaries, right? And it talks about the fact that there have always been, that Marx had his definition of what a revolutionary organization should be. And then there was the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, and that chapter 3 of my book, Counter Gangs and Revolutionaries, gets into the fact that fanatical political and religious organizations have often been used by factions in the ruling class that are fighting against each other, and that revolutionary organizations, often align with different factions in the ruling class, and that I talk about all of this, right? So chapter 3 of this book, I get into gangs and counter gangs. I get into revolutionary organizations and how they're manipulated and how they're aligned with different factions of the ruling class, and that the ruling class are always fighting with each other. They're always trying to build up forces to be their allies. They want to oppose communist revolution, but they also want to oppose the other capitalists. And revolutions always begin as divisions within the ruling class. And that, the whole cult thing, it's a huge oversimplification. When it really gets down to it, human beings are collective in nature. Human beings, the way you see yourself is related to how other people see you. And human beings are collective. So when human beings are in groups, they tend to conform to groups. Now, groups have different levels of cohesion, and there can be abuse in organizations or predatory behavior, obviously. But the idea that there's these evil groups called cults, that's a liberal thing. And the fact that Netflix is obsessed with cults and is constantly warning you, don't join a group or it might be a cult. I don't use that word anymore. Falun Gong is a counter gang, right? You want to call them a cult. Why does that matter, right? Falun Gong, are they a fanatical group that is, at odds with the prevailing society? Are they an obscure religion? Who cares? That doesn't matter. What matters with Falun Gong is that they're being used by American imperialism to fight against the Chinese government, right? That they are the main vehicle through which the anti-China forces within the U.S. government, build anti-China activism, spread anti-China propaganda. That's what matters, right? So there you go. That's what matters. So it doesn't matter if they're a cult. What matters is, if they're, what they're being used for. And they're being used for an evil purpose, which is to try and foment World War III. So, there you go. Let's not forget that Jesus and his movement, Christianity, was called a cult when it began, right? So yeah, of course we allow dual membership with Code Pink. Why wouldn't we, right? Yeah, Code Pink members can join CPI. Yeah, absolutely. And the Bolsheviks were considered to be a cult, right? The Party of New Type. They said, this isn't a revolutionary organization. This Party of New Type, Lenin, you want people to give the whole of their lives to the revolutionary movement? You want people to become professional revolutionaries? That sounds like a monastic order. That sounds like a cult. Well, good thing that Lenin created that cult, or we'd never have had the Soviet Union, right? We need to get over this liberal thing. Oh my God, I think for myself. Get over that, right? Get over that. And again, some people won't get over it, and they don't belong in the revolutionary movement, right? They don't belong in the revolutionary movement. So there you go. There you go. All right. BRICS is learning from Tito in the non-aligned movement. Is it? That's interesting. I mean, okay. I mean, the non-aligned movement was a very, very important development, and it's still around technically. It's still like part of the UN, I believe. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay. I mean, that's important. But the main thing is we don't want there to be blocks, right? And that's what I think people need to remember about the BRICS. We don't want it to be, oh, are you with BRICS or are you with the West? Because there's the fact that there's a number of neutral countries there and there can still be trade. That's important, right? We don't want to create a block. All right. CPI gets attacked from the left and the right. Good sign. Yep. Yeah. We're, they wouldn't feel a need to attack us if we were not a threat, right? And the fact that we're mentioned in the texty thing, the fact that, I mean, we're getting shit done, right? Again, it's not about trying to win the internet, right? It's not about trying to win the internet and get the most views. The internet is rigged. It's about building a community, and I'm here to recruit you. Good. I am here to recruit you, and I make no bones about it. I am here to recruit you to join the Center for Political Innovation. I want you to join our in real life community of solidarity. That's what I'm here to do. What drives you to do what you do? Well, Gabby, this is the only way I've ever known how to live, right? I became a communist when I was 15. I remember communists gave me a stack of newspapers, told me to go out on the street and start selling them. And I couldn't believe it. The day that changed my life, that really saved my life, was the day that a 15-year-old Caleb was given a stack of communist newspapers and told to go sell them on the street. This is the only way I've ever known how to live. I don't know any other way of living. This is the only way I've ever been able to really find fulfillment and happiness. And this is who I am. This is my identity. I am an anti-imperialist, and I'm committed to this, I don't claim to be perfect. I don't claim to be flawless. I'm certainly not telling people how to live their lives, but this is who I am. I am committed to this. And, I have made a lot of sacrifices for this. I get a thrill out of this, and the relationships that I've built over the years, and the ability to the places I've gotten to travel, and the way I've gotten to work in television, the way I've gotten, it's been very rewarding for me. It's been disappointing for me too. I've had my share of frustration and disappointment with the communist groups, especially in America. And, I am constantly telling people there's a reason we're the Center for Political Innovation, right? And we're not leftists, and we're pretty solidly breaking with the left, right? We're solidly breaking with the left because the left is toxic, right? And we're not left, we're not right. We're focused on saving the world from imperialism. We're anti-imperialist. We want to save this country from imperialism. We want to build a new America for working families. We love communities. We love families. We love healthcare and jobs and education. We believe in economic growth. We believe in development. We want to end war. We stand for some pretty basic traditional values, right? So that's what Putin's always talking about, right? Is about our traditional values, right? We stand for traditional values, and we're against colonialism and imperialism. Whenever I hear Russian government officials talk, they say, 1, we're opposing the legacy of colonialism and imperialism. They say, 2, we're standing up for traditional values. CPI, we believe in opposing the legacy of colonialism and imperialism and traditional values. Now, traditional values means jobs, healthcare, community, strengthening families, education. Traditional values doesn't mean kill all the gay people, okay? It doesn't mean, outlaw abortion. It means loving your community, valuing and treasuring human life. We're builders, not vandals, right? I'm just going to keep going, and I believe in what I'm doing. But I've rethought a lot of things, and I will continue to rethink because, we should always be willing to learn. This project continues. We do not surrender. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I'll be back tomorrow night. Sunday, we're going to have another big, long stream of classic CPI material. And, then I'll be back on Monday after that. So we keep going. Thank you, everybody, for all the support and everything. And it was a great Friday check-in. Hopefully tomorrow night I have an actual news hook to talk about. But tonight it ended up just being a check-in, but it was fine. It was a good check-in. So it's always better to stream than not to stream. That is my feeling. So here I am, and I'll be back. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.